Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Great to have you back. 2 episodes today. The other one is Little Donnie, a look at Mike Norton's great political comic strip that took social media by storm, so much so that one of the big newspaper syndicates got it and is offering it digitally on their comic strip syndicate package. And what a great thing. We talked at his signing at Challengers Comics, and it was fantastic. So if you haven't checked it out, do so. It's available today. It's part of, as is today's episode, our back-to-school session that we're calling Word Balloon 101. That's right. I'm going through the hallways right now. Man, I hope nobody notices. I got a new zit, and my locker combination isn't working. And does anyone know where Psych 101 is? Anyone? All right. I guess I'll find it myself. While I'm ambling through the hallways, I'll tell you about today's episode. We've done a lot of panels at Terrificon last weekend, and they were incredible. And they've got that lecture hall sound to them. So I thought, well, it's back to school season. Why not package it all as Word Balloon 101? So in the weeks ahead, you're going to hear great conversations and discussions about the psychology of Wolverine. That's why I'm looking for that Psych 101 class. Superman's 80th anniversary, a look at the history of Robin through the creators who did it, a look at the Infinity Gauntlet with Jim Starlin and Ron Lim and Joe Rubenstein talking about the original story that inspired Avengers Infinity War. We have a great Black Panther panel with Don McGregor, Christopher Priest, Afua Richardson, and Bob Allman all talking about their experiences dealing with T'Challa and the Black Panther explosion that's happened this year. What a positive thing. And, these are the comic book creators that really created the foundation for the film. Great discussion there. A discussion about Marvel Cosmic happening with Jim Starlin and Roy Thomas. There's so many great conversations, and they're going to be coming up each day, or I should say weekly, here at Word Balloon. So I hope you'll enjoy it. And like I said, it seems like a good discussion for back-to-school season. Word Balloon 101. Today, the subject is current events, and it's a Marvel Today panel with C.B. Cebulski, the first time CB has ever been on Word Balloon. I'm so glad to finally get him. He was always globetrotting when he was the talent coordinator, running around trying to find new artists for Marvel all over the world. I'm in China, I can't talk to you. I'm in Italy, I can't talk to you. Well, thank God now he's back on the East Coast, and I got him to sit down at this convention and talk to us and the audience about what's happening at Marvel Today. But we also have 2 great writers with him. Nick Spencer, who has taken over on Amazing Spider-Man and is doing amazing things. New issue came out this week. And Charles Soule, who's just been doing a wonderful job on Daredevil, his Star Wars books as well, the Inhumans, all great stuff. And they are here to answer my questions and also the audience's questions in this panel about what's going on at Marvel Today. So C.B. Cebulski, Charles Soule, and Nick Spencer all on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much, League, through your support via Patreon at patreon.com/wordballoon, or you can go to wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. Is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month to you? If it is, and you've got the money, if you could subscribe to Word Balloon, you'd be helping me out greatly. You're helping me get to the conventions. You're helping me keep the equipment pristine. And, it's making it a lot easier to connect with these creators and give you some of the great content I've been giving you every month here at Word Balloon. Little secret, last episode, the Mike Norton episode, that was Word Balloon 800. How about that? We've crossed the 800 threshold. Actually, it's more than that because it goes back to my original feed from 2005 to September 2006. That's when I switched over to the current feed, and Ed Brubaker was one of our first guests on the new feed. But that's okay. That was about 50 or so episodes. I never keep the full count, and I'm happy to count from 1 there. But I will always say that Word Balloon started back in May of 2005 because it's true. But anyway, if you like Word Balloon and you can help out the cause by subscribing, it will help me greatly and help me continue to expand Word Balloon. I've got video now that I'm trying to do when it's appropriate. Our first Twitch video went up with the Mike Norton interview, and I think it's been a success so far. Check that out on the Mike post here at wordballoon.com. But if you'd like to subscribe to Word Balloon, you can click on the Patreon ad at right there on the front page of wordballoon.com, or go to patreon.com/wordballoon. Thanks as always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by In Stock Trades at InStockTrades.com. I'm looking at some of the great Charles Soule Marvel product that's available at In Stock Trades. There's all of his stuff, like his Oni Press stuff, Letter 44, his previous DC work on things like Swamp Thing, and the Villains Omnibus. But we're here to talk about Marvel. So let's reach back for some great Marvel Charles Soule product at InStockTrades.com. You can get things like the She-Hulk Volume 1, Law and Disorder, a great run with Jennifer, in the hands of a capable lawyer, as we'll hear about his conversation talking about Daredevil. But this first volume of She-Hulk is available for $9.27. You can also get Thunderbolts Trade Paperback Volume 4, No Mercy. Great volume there. It is $11.59. His first volume of Inhumans, Genesis, is $10.43. And those are just some of the great Charles Soule books that you'll find at InStockTrades.com. Don't take my word for it. Go to the website. You'll find great books at great prices. Your orders of $50 or more receive free shipping from our friends at InStockTrades.com. All right, let's take you back to last weekend, Terrificon at Mohegan Sun. Unbelievable panels. I was privileged to do 8 of these panels. You're going to hear them, as I say, in the weeks ahead. The Word Balloon League of Word Balloon listeners at Patreon are going to hear them first. The exception actually is today's episode, Marvel Today. I didn't put it on my Patreon page because I knew it would be one of the first episodes that I release for this package of Word Balloon 101. So let's all file in and take our seats for this course of current events in the Marvel fashion. We've got Nick Spencer, Charles Soule, and Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski talking about today's Marvel and fielding questions from the audience, students. Let's get into it now on Word Balloon. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to be doing the What's Happening Now at Marvel Comics. And seriously, I love all 3 of these guys. And I'm not just saying that. John Suntress, I host a podcast called Word Balloon. And really excited to have these guys back. In the cases of 2 of our writers, of course, all the way at the back there. Wonderful work on the Inhumans. Currently kicking ass on Daredevil. Charles Soule, everybody. Another guy, controversial run on Captain America. I loved it. And now kicking ass on Spider-Man, the great Nick Spencer. And really excited to finally have, even just on a panel, but you'll be on the podcast, so finally, Editor-in-Chief of Marvel Comics, C.B. Cebulski, everybody. So this is a really great opportunity to talk to these guys and hear about what's going on in Marvel. Marvel, CB, you've just taken over recently as Editor-in-Chief. Controversial last couple of years at Marvel, and I'm interested in what your thesis or whatever, what is your goal now as Editor-in-Chief?
A lot of people have asked me that question since I took over. It's just, every editor-in-chief has the different agendas or different goals or different motives or different ways that they drive the creative business for Marvel forward. And when I came in, it was kind of a quick turnaround for me. I was living in China, and they asked me to come back, and it was an honor to even be asked. And once I accepted the job, that was the first thing people asked me: "What's you going to do? What you're going to do? What's the goal?" And I was like, you know what? And I think in the first creative retreat that we had, I said, I really don't have one. The goal for me is always talent first. It's, let the creators, the writers, the artists, the pencilers, the cover artists, let everybody do their best work first and foremost. And, everyone that works at Marvel, from these guys to the editorial team are fans at heart. And we've all had stories in our heads since we were kids about what we would want to do, what we would do if we took over, Spider-Man or Daredevil. And it's like, if the fans inside of us shine through to the fans who are reading the books, then we've done our job. And that's the most important thing, is to make Marvel a fan-friendly company.
Excellent. In every iteration of Marvel, absolutely applause for that if you want. I heard one guy was applauding. There we go. Smattering of applause. Absolutely. What I've loved is I've been doing this podcast for 14 years now, and what has been great to learn is, as CB mentions, the creative retreats, where the creators really do get together and talk story and really kind of do that. Describe that for us, CB. What kind of atmosphere is it at the Marvel retreats? Exactly. Yeah.
Every atmosphere is different depending on who's in the room. You know, we've been doing these for as long as I've been at Marvel, and they've been going back even longer. You know, I was talking to Jeff Loeb recently, and he was telling me about the original Age of Apocalypse creative retreat 25 years ago, when they went to Tarrytown, New York, and rented a hotel, and they had all the artists and writers in. And every retreat kind of takes on a life of its own, depending on what we're talking about and where it goes. But, you know, first and foremost, we try to have no egos and also no agendas, really. It's the guys come in, they kind of pitch their stories, and then it's everybody else in the room can comment, good or bad. You know, everybody takes some lumps here and there, but some really positive stuff comes out of it, because we are just all this one creative hive mind that's trying to push out the best comics for the Marvel line. We work about 12 months to 18 months out sometimes, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, guys, Nick and Charles, tell me about, as writers, and whether they involved your stories. And I don't want any spoilers or, you know, embarrass anybody, but really, because I've heard how crazy, in a great creative way, some of these Marvel retreats go. The one story that I know that you guys weren't at, CB, I don't know if you were there, but when in World War Hulk, when the Hulk crushed Doctor Strange's hands, so he couldn't, you know, manifest spells anymore, well, who's going to be the new Sorcerer Supreme? And that was this awesome, as I understood it, for the people that were there, Dan Slott, Brian Bendis, this great heated discussion of, well, it's got to be, you know, Brother Voodoo. It can't be Brother Voodoo, and just throwing back and forth. So yeah, I don't, you know, CB, am I saying it right?
No, that's right. You know, and the other thing about that retreat is that I think it was the one before that. It's how these things can get turned on their head. We went to a retreat where we were going in to talk about World War Hulk and what was going to happen. And everything was moving forward. And on the last day, it was Mark Miller who threw out some wacky ideas for Civil War. And we said, oh my God, you know what? It would work better if we kind of switched those stories. So just in a matter of minutes, World War Hulk got delayed a whole year so we could do Civil War first. So that's the kind of things that happen here. And yeah, that's why I say, you know, we go in with a general plan, but not knowing what's gonna come out of it.
And yes, Civil War, I'm glad you brought that up, because I also remember you mentioned Jeff Loeb, that yeah, it started with Mark and Bendis in a cab, and like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it or whatever. Civil War happens, and Loeb's like, whose side are you on? Yeah. And that became kind of the tagline for the event and everything. So, but Nick and Charles, your retreat stories?
I mean, they're usually they run 3 days most of the time, and the first day is, and I'm just talking about the way these things feel, right? Because you're in a room with some of the most brilliant writers and sometimes artists that you've ever, you know, you're fans of everyone that you're in the room with, and hopefully they like you too, and so there's a lot of pressure to feel like, at least when I do it, you know, to feel like I should be there, right? Like I need to earn my keep, and you know, idea-wise. But the first day is kind of when everything gets laid out and you find out what we're going to be talking about. And then the second day is when you really kind of hash through whatever you're supposed to be talking about. And then as CD sort of mentioned, the third day is when almost everything you talked about the previous 2 days gets thrown out the window, and then the really good stuff happens. So you need 48 hours of just running through the mill of ideas before the really good stuff tends to pop. And I've been to a bunch of them, and that I would say is how they usually work, but not always.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of stories, I always think about my first one, because I had been at Marvel for a while, but I had been to a retreat, and I was taking over Captain America, and I had already talked to Tom and Axel about the Hydra reveal. So they invited me to my first one, and I, you know, I'm like, okay, I'll be here the first day, you know, feel things out, see how this goes, and see how everybody does it, and then I'll pitch my stuff. And I look at the agenda, and it's like 9 a.m. on the Monday or whatever, and I'm the first thing on the agenda. So I was just like, okay, you know, I don't know how you guys usually do this, but and had to lay out, you know, the entire story from, you know, Hydra up to what would become Secret Empire. So that was a pretty daunting, intimidating moment, but it, you know, it seemed to go okay.
Yeah, the mornings of the retreat are often a little tense, because sometimes the real work at the retreats happens after the retreats, at the dinners or at the bars after.
Sure.
And, you know, tongues get a little bit looser, ideas get a little bit freer, things get a little bit crazier, and then people come in the next morning and go, hey, we had this idea last night. It sounded great in the evening sometimes, but sometimes it carries over, and sometimes you go, what were you thinking? That's the dumbest thing we've ever heard.
Well, I want to, honestly, this is a great opportunity to really get into some of the creative heads, and I'm certainly going to talk to these guys about what they're doing now. Nick, obviously, just getting started with his Spider-Man run. Charles doing excellent work on Daredevil. But if you guys have some initial questions, I'd like to throw it open. Sir.
Yeah, CB, I'm super excited about Dan Slott on FF. And I know FF was in a difficult period for a while, with those characters being sort of scattered and the book not being published for the first time in 50 whatever years. So can you talk a little bit about what the importance of that, the original flagship title is to Marvel as you see it as editor-in-chief, and sort of what support you and the rest of the gang have for Dan and company going forward?
Yeah, I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. It was one of the first books that I was reading when I was growing up. X-Men first, FF second for me. And, after Secret Wars, like you said, the characters were scattered. They had kind of their own stories. They were appearing in different books, in different places, but they were never together as a team. And then, when I came back, one of the first things I wanted to do was, talk to Tom Brevoort and said, we have to bring the FF back, which was music to Tom's ears because that's Tom's favorite book. And, the creative team was, who are we going to put on that book? And Tom said, well, Dan's coming off of Spider-Man, and it was kind of right time, right place, and that's another reason that we felt comfortable bringing the book back at the time, because Dan came in, sat down at a lunch, and pitched us a 2-year story, really 24 issues, 12 that he had worked out in his head, literally from page 1 to page 20 for every issue, and then a looser second year, and we just sat there, and we're just like, this is the story. This is the family. And I think that's the important thing too. Is the Fantastic Four. A lot of people always tend to focus on the fantastic of it all. They are the explorers. Reed takes the team and puts them on these crazy adventures, just like what Reed and Sue have been on for the last few years on their own. But sometimes people tend to forget that they are the first family as well. It's that family dynamic that really makes them special and that really cemented them in the hearts and minds of fans from their first appearance. And that's what the things that Dan really nailed was the family aspect of this. It's the emotions between Ben and Johnny. If you saw in the first issue, he had Alicia in there. There's not going to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read the first issue. And then when Reed and Sue and the kids, especially when Valeria and Franklin also do come back, that family aspect is going to be so centered in the book. I think fans are going to really love it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sir, the second row there.
So, throughout history, it's often been stated that every work of literature has a message to tell. And coming in as the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, which throughout its entire history has been such a strong vessel for political messages, for social commentary, like Black Panther portraying what Africa could have been like if slavery had not kind of invaded it. What do you feel are the messages that Marvel would like to tell people now?
Marvel has always been, as Stan always said, is the world outside our window. It's a reflection of the modern times that we live in. And, Marvel has never shied away from that. Like you say, for those examples, or, around what happened with 9/11, even what we were doing in Secret Empire, the story that Nick told. And we're going to continue that tradition. There is a couple of issues coming up of a couple of comics recently that are going to reflect things that are going on in the real world. However, one of the things I want to make sure is when we do tell these stories is that, I don't know how to put this in the right way, they still have to be entertainment. If we want to see the real world, we could turn on CNN, we could turn on the TV, we could pick up a newspaper and see what's going on in there. And yes, it's our responsibility as a comic book publisher, especially Marvel, given how the history that we have, as you say, to reflect those times, but they still have to be fun. They still have to be fiction, and they still have to be escapism. We can't get too deep into the politics, and the characters can take sides, choose sides, or, become bad, turn evil, turn back to good. But they still have to entertain, and that's first and foremost what. No matter what real world events we are going to reflect, they are going to be fictionalized, and they are going to have the Marvel, the classic spin that Stan always brought to them. They will be serious, but they'll also make people smile.
Cool. Sure.
Seems twofold question here, CB. I'm a big X-Men fan. That's kind of where I started in comics and my introduction, primarily as a kid.
Same here. Burn Claremont.
There you go. And so, recent news, of course, is that you had a meeting with John Byrne, and that was pretty big, of course. Is that going to lead to something? Claremont's still under contract with Marvel, but he hasn't really done anything. Uncanny is being relaunched in, I believe, November. I know the artist team was just announced. It's supposed to be like a 10-week issue, I believe, what I read. I don't know if that's right or wrong, the internet, of course. And Gold and Blue are about to end soon. So could you talk a little bit about the future of the X-Men world? Maybe what is in store, good or bad, Claremont Byrne, or some of these legends, if there's a return?
Sure, I can't speak too much to the specifics of anything really without giving too much away, you know. And Cullen and Mark Guggenheim, what Charles was doing on Astonishing, what Matt Rosenberg is doing on Astonishing now, what Tom Taylor's doing on X-Men Red, the X-Men books are in a really good place. And with Uncanny coming back in November, we have a lot of fun stuff planned. I think the fans are going to be really happy because any X-Men that you've ever liked or not liked will be in that story. I'm a big Danny Moonstar fan. She's my favorite character. And I made sure that, she'll have her time and place in the X-Men going forward. As for the two specific guys you're asking about, with Chris, yes, we will be seeing more from Chris in the X-Men universe in the near future. Like I said, I grew up on those stories. I love Chris, and he has a lot of things he still wants to say with those characters, and we are going to let him tell more tales very soon. As for John, I did have a wonderful breakfast with John. I've been a fan. I geeked out for a while, and remember told him how we met 22 years ago at Mid-Ohio Comic-Con. I still own some Byrne original art that I have hanging on my wall, and he was, surprised to hear, so I'm that big a fan. And the meeting with John was casual. He is doing that great X-Men stuff online now. We did have a brief chat about that. We will be following up on some things. When I took over as editor-in-chief, I made a wish list. John Byrne's name was the first name on that list. It would be wonderful for me to have him back, but with John, we are slowly going to start rebuilding that trust between him and with Marvel, and hopefully in the future we will see something, but I can't, say now when or what that will be.
Now you say wish list, that means there might be other creators.
Oh, there are a lot of other creators.
That's excellent. And honestly, that's great to hear. And again, with every regime change, there is a new opportunity to reconnect with these people and bring them back in the fold if it's possible.
Next year we announced recently that next year is Marvel's 80th anniversary, and we have a lot of cool stuff planned. And part of what I really want to do is get a lot of the creators who worked in some of those books from those decades back and have them to be contributing some kind of story to the Marvel mythos again. Because the way to drive forward the future, we can't forget our past. And those guys really built some of the blocks that we as editors and as creators still stand on. And having them come back and be able to tribute again would be wonderful, and that would be the best way to honor the Marvel anniversary, I feel.
I may just add on to it. I was talking to my local comic book store. One of the owners is actually here today.
Which shop?
Hollow Comics and yeah.
Okay.
One of the owners is here today, and we were talking just this week and how we loved Marvel Comics Presents and how so many wonderful legends worked on this series.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be tremendous if Marvel relaunched an anthology, whether it's that or something else, and it could be anchored with some legends of the past, some of the young guns of the present, and just showcase different characters, different talents, and just...
Sounds like your comic shop owner got a peek at our 2019 publishing plan.
Wait a minute.
We'll wait and see. I think you'll be happy.
That's excellent. Sir.
And this could have to be more predictable. The Spider-Man books, you have amazing and spectacular, maybe to a lesser extent than Riley. Do you see them doing a storyline together in the future, or linking up in the continuity, or do you see them as just kind of separate, each amazing and spectacular, and then Riley separate?
I think right now we're kind of on separate tracks, but you never know in the future. You do have Spider-Man coming up that Christopher Gage is doing that's going to connect a lot of the other Spider titles. So that's definitely something to check out if you want to see all the characters together. We're probably not too far off before they start colliding again.
Excellent. Mitch?
I was going to say, right? First of all, I made a mistake. I forgot to go get Mark Guggenheim and bring him out here, so don't tell him. I was putting the panel together. I said, oh, I'll get all the Marvel guys. I'm sitting there going, yeah. Now, sorry. Don't tell him. But he's a great guy.
Mark's wonderful.
Yeah, he doesn't listen to my podcast, so don't worry, he won't. He won't.
All right, forget it. All right. First off, thank you guys for coming. It might be the only chance I get to see you, so the whole weekend I'm like, oh God, there's
Thanks for having me.
All right. Serious question, though, other than Guggenheim left off the list. Old timers like me, 52, that's old, read the comics, all day long, all we talk about, most of the folks here, Marvel Premiere, 3D Man, the Liberty Legion, all that stuff that...
I love the Liberty Legion.
John knows.
I do know. It's true.
You guys who are younger than me, which I never thought I'd say that in my life, but I just did. That's scary. Do you sit there and go, okay, Grandpa, I'm not writing Caleb Hammer, the Western that was in Marvel Premiere issue 42. Anyway, you guys even look into that stuff, or you kind of just put that in?
No, of course.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about what's new. You don't want to keep rehab. You don't want to be the oldies band. You don't want to be the Rolling Stone playing.
You know, I don't know. I mean, in Daredevil right now, there's an arc where Mike Murdock comes back. Mike
Yay!
not been in,
His brother?
Yeah, his
when they take off the mask.
yeah, his fake made-up twin brother. Yeah, that doesn't exist. That
Groovy.
Yeah, he's super groovy. He's that suit he wore with the feather in his hat. Hey, it's amazing, amazing. He hasn't been in Marvel Comics, I think, for like 50 years.
There might be a reason.
Well, wait and see. But he's in the arc of writing of Daredevil now. Phil Noto's drawing him, doing an incredible job, and I thought there was a story there, and the idea because Matt Murdock doesn't, he doesn't have a family really, and so to give him a dirtbag twin brother, maybe there's a story there, and yeah, you have to jump through some hoops to make it work. But that's, I think
consciously on your part,
yes.
An homage, or you're like,
well, yes and no. It's. I don't see it as homages necessarily. It's like it. I don't, and I would say the same thing's probably true for you. You don't bring something back as an homage. You bring it back because you think there's something new and cool you could do with it. Yeah. And so it might work as an homage because you're certainly being respectful of the previous version of the work. But when I choose something from the olden days, it's because I think I can do something cool with it now, and that's what the Mike Murdock storyline is, and plenty of other stuff that we do.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, the entirety of the Captain America Sam Wilson book is really just a love letter to the Mark Gruenwald run, which I adored as a kid. And, so, everything from, Capwolf and Diamondback and the Serpent Society, like just, bringing in everything, because it also felt like a time when a Catwolf should be like that and should feel like that again. So, part of our job is taking those concepts and those characters and introducing them to a new audience, making sure that we're carrying on that tradition. So, a huge part of what I do is going through and just digging through the back issues and finding stuff to mine. That's part of the joy of the game.
Opportunity.
Yeah, every character is somebody's favorite, no matter how old those characters are. And even, younger creators these days remember characters from those times fondly from their dads or from their grandfathers because there's a history that they've been told the stories about. And we're always looking to mine a lot of those characters. What can we do? What character's cool? Who's right for coming back? What character can speak in a different voice to a different generation? What impact did certain characters have on readers back then that can have a similar impact now? So we're always looking back through those archives. And Tom Brevoort, he's got a brain, that just holds all this information about Marvel that anytime we need something, we can go to Tom and ask, and he could say, yeah, go look in, War's Hell issue, whatever, for this character, or, Marvel Comics presents for this character because we might need someone that fits. And a lot of times the creators will come to us and say, hey, I was just reading this comic, I was talking to this fan, and I went back and looked for this character. What about bringing them back? So, we would love to mine the Marvel history for older characters and bring them back just as much as we would, to create new characters.
So Pace Pop Pete is back.
Yeah.
Heard it here first.
Mm-hmm. Well, the big wheel, wasn't he in...
There you go, absolutely.
Razorback.
Yeah, exactly.
Razorback.
Yeah, Razorback's around.
Amazing Spider-Man number 4 comes out next week. It's got the Luger and Mendel Strong. Indeed.
And actually, shame on me because I do want to hear what these guys are doing right now. And Nick, it's great to see you on Amazing Spider-Man proper after Superior Foes of Spider-Man. And man, that was just entertaining as hell. And that's the thing, people. I'm really glad, Nick, because this is a great opportunity for you to remind people that you're a very funny writer as well as a good action writer and a very serious writer as well. So tell us what else is coming up in Spider-Man.
It's just a real moment. I mean, I can still remember the first time me and CB had dinner was like Kaiju, probably 8 years ago at this point, and it was you were at talent management at the time, and you asked what do you want to do, and I think usually people answer with pitches that they think they could get greenlit there shortly. So it's a lot of like Cloak and Dagger and Inferior, kind of the old standbys that everybody always pitches. And I said I wouldn't write Spider-Man. That's been my dream since the minute I signed here. So, and really, for my whole life before that. So. To actually be doing it is still a thing that I'm kicking myself about. Like yesterday, I did this little interview and somebody, just said so you're writing Amazing Spider-Man, and I'm still pinching myself about that. So and the response to the book so far has just been phenomenal. I'm so happy that you guys are seeming to like it. And working with Ryan Otley is just a joy. So we got 2 more issues here in this first arc, Back to Basics, and then we're doing a fun story with Boomerang and the Bar with No Name. Boomerang, if you don't know, is currently Peter's roommate. So they're in kind of an awkward situation, and it's only getting a little weirder. And then if we have any Black Hat fans, she's going to play a major role in the book in the arc that follows that one. So, a lot of cool stuff coming.
Excellent. Fantastic. I'll take a question, and I want to hear what Charles has cooking, but go ahead, sir.
I actually have a question for Nick Spencer. It was actually about, who do you think is better, Black Cat or MJ?
Oh!
Wow.
The thing is, like when you're supposed to ask me is MJ or Gwen, I'm allowed to say Felicia. That's a tough one, and it's an interesting question to ask. I would tell you to read like 8 through 10, because we're going to get into that quite a bit, I think. Not to hint too much, but I love Felicia. She's one of my favorite characters. She was one of my favorite characters as a kid. In fact, Superior Foes was originally a Black Hat pitch. It was originally a Black Hat pitch that I sent to Joe Quesada when I was in college. I sent Joe 3 pitches. He was very kind to, I was like 19 years old at the time, and he was very kind to let me shoot him some ideas. And I sent him 3 ideas. One was a Ghost Rider idea, one was a Hawk idea, and one was Black Hat pitch. And he hated the Hulk pitch and the Ghost Rider pitch. And he said, that Black Hat pitch, it's not bad. He's like, but we're not looking for anything right now. So years later to get to do that book in a weird kind of inverse was really a thrill for me.
That's awesome. I love the fact that Charles is a lawyer and first did She-Hulk and did such a great job with her, and now on Daredevil as well. Absolutely, man. We'll have for She-Hulk, absolutely. Hell yeah. And Daredevil as well. And the great thing is, truly, I was like, one of the last times I had Charles on, I'm like, Charles, I'm not a big Inhumans guy. What are you doing with them? And then he tells me, and I'm like, oh my God, that sounds incredible. And I realized he totally turned me around. So Charles, tell us what's beyond Mike Murdock. What else is going on with you?
Well, Mike Murdock is the focus of my creative life now. I'm hoping for years to come. 50 issues about Mike Murdock.
I'm for it.
So I've been a Daredevil for a long time, and it's been an incredibly rewarding title. The Daredevil fans are some of the most devoted that I have encountered, and Marvel fans are very devoted as it is, but the Daredevil fans are wonderful. And it's been really neat to use my legal background in the story too, and then put in stories like in Supreme. I took him to the Supreme Court. He was in the DA's office in New York, and then Wilson Fisk became mayor in the Mayor Fisk arc. And then so I got to put Daredevil in City Hall too as the deputy mayor. So there's been a lot of fun things that have been happening, and we got to build up the Daredevil 600, which was amazing. And so the first big chunk of my run had Ron Garney, the wonderful Ron Garney, as kind of a linchpin artist, and we just shifted over to the next main artist on the title, Phil Noto, who is unbelievable. Yeah, he had one issue out, 606 so far. We started Double Vision, which is the Mike Murdock story, and then I think 607 is out next week, which continues that. So we're in the Mike Murdock story now. That runs for 3 issues, but then after that is the biggest arc, I think, probably, that I've done on Daredevil. And I can't tell you what it's called, unfortunately.
I wouldn't say probably. I think it is.
So I can't tell you what it's called, because if I tell you what it's called, you'll know why. But I think we'll be able to start talking about it pretty soon, and it's very exciting because it all kind of builds to this. So that is a thrill. The other huge project I'm working on for Marvel and superhero world is all the Wolverine stuff.
Yes, indeed.
You may know that Wolverine died in 2014 because Steve McNiven and I killed him. And he's now come back, or he's coming back. And so Steve McNiven and I were asked to tell the story where he comes back, which is an amazing thing. We've been doing kind of a prelude story building up to it called Hunt for Wolverine, which is most of the Marvel Universe kind of running around looking for his missing body. And then Return of Wolverine hits September 19th with Steve and I kind of coming back to tell the story of what he's doing now. And it's a very... it's a story that I think is very personal. You might have heard about his hot claws. Hot claws. Woo!
Hot claws. Yes.
They heat up sometimes. It's not exactly like a new power. It's more of a side effect. But it's a huge story. It's got a new villain named Persephone, who we'll be talking about more soon. She's very cool and very interesting. And the book is about his return to life, but it's very much also about his death and how. The superheroes come back to life all the time, and they never really, it's just sort of like, okay, now I'm back, let's have some adventures. And so I wanted to write a story where he's kind of reflective, and he's thinking about, thinking about the life he left and how it was all, there were some good moments, but there's also a lot of death and despair and really tough moments for him. And now he's back, and now he's got to get on that horse again and just do that. He doesn't ride a horse in the book. But he's got to start. He's just got to go back to that life again, and he has to decide and think about and find a reason to be Wolverine again, and that's really the core of Return of Wolverine. And I cannot wait for you guys to see it. I've been writing the story for feels like a year, and I think it has been a year, and it's really good. So that's Wolverine, and then I also do 2 books in the Star Wars line, Poe Dameron and Darth Vader, which are also a blast.
And I wanted to get into Star Wars, absolutely. So let's start with CB, and then I want to hear what is going on from a writer standpoint for Star Wars. But yeah, I mean, really, ever since Marvel got the license back, and Dark Horse, by the way, did a tremendous 20-year run with Star Wars, and that needs to be acknowledged because it was fantastic. And then, Marvel gets the license back and puts all of your top creative people on the book. CB, Charles and Jason and everybody. Good Lord. And Phil Noto did some great work on Star Wars as well. Great artists, great writers. So yeah, what can you tell us about the Star Wars line?
I always say when I was growing up, I love 3 things. I love Disney, I love Marvel, and I love Star Wars. So yeah,
good luck, Stevie.
So it's pretty crazy. And then when we became part of the Disney family, and then when Disney announced that they were also going to be acquiring Lucasfilm, it was one thing that I knew that we always as a company should do. We would love to join forces and make sure that we're on the same family again and bring the Star Wars books back to Marvel, which everybody made happen, which we were thrilled with. And we knew that it was coming back. We had to go out and really, just like you said, put our best foot forward. Put the Marvel's top creators on those books. And we did it. And the first issue of Star Wars sold 1 million copies. It was the first book, I forget what it was, in 15 years or something.
Easily, yes.
Sales number.
Yeah.
And the books have just been doing so phenomenally well. And, we started with those core characters and expanded out. And, everyone that's come on has been contributing to the actual continuity, the mythos of the Star Wars, universe. And the Lucasfilm has been wonderful in, giving us reign to really explore a lot of the corners that they haven't been able to touch on in the films or the animation TV shows, especially what Charles has been doing. We'll get to it in Poe Dameron. And they've given you amazing creative license to really expand that character, from who's only been seen in 2 films so far.
I mean, there's been a million things that have been amazing about the Poe Dameron series, writing it. Phil Noto and I launched it, and we got to go out to Lucasfilm in San Francisco, and then they sort of showed us episode 7 ahead of time because we needed to start writing the series. But the way they showed it to us was kind of this mix of photographs and slideshows and like a guy in a room kind of telling us the story. So I had never heard Poe Dameron speak at all and I had written 2 scripts by the time I finally saw the movie in the theater when we all saw it. And so like writing that guy before I heard him was a very interesting thing. But from that all the way to the current arc, which is set after The Last Jedi. It's the only Star Wars storytelling in any of their mediums that's set after The Last Jedi is the Poe Dameron comic. And the idea that they let us do these things, and that kind of stuff happens all through the Marvel Comics line. Like they let us do incredible. You can't believe the stuff they let us do because they trust us, I guess, as storytellers, and we work very closely with them to make sure that it all just feels like Star Wars. So it's a real. I love the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. That's amazing, and honestly, a huge contrast to the time period between Empire and Jedi, because I'd spoken to Walter Simonson about that period, and they would have a story idea, and Lucas, films would be like, "No, you can't do that. You can't go there." So to the point too, where I know they had one story where Luke and Vader were going to approach each other, and it's like, "Oh, wait, no, you can't do that. They can't see each other." And maybe that was between the first film and Empire. But so they had to make it like a hologram of Vader or whatever to kind of appease Lucasfilms. But anyway, enough of me. Back to you guys with questions.
And they've been great. Just chime in. One thing that's been awesome for us is in creating new characters and adding to the mythos. With just like introducing Son of Solo and then Dr. Aphra, which is great that they were giving us the freedom to do that. But now Aphra's getting turned into her own action figure, which is crazy as well.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Gentleman in the back, yes, sir.
2 questions. For TV, how do you fit Marvel Rising into, how do you do that for a reader? Like, is it included as part of regular Marvel Universe? Is it something separate? Because the characters are like, how does that work? And then for Nick, are we going to see Teresa?
So for question, Marvel Rising fits into continuity. The comic book series does. So it's a larger plan for us to kind of bring in more female readers for a younger demographic. To kind of capture some of what DC's been doing with their girls line, to bring some of the Marvel female characters that are more accessible to younger readers. And in the animated series and some of the other things we're doing, that's going to be set on its own. But the comic series, the Marvel Rising series now does fully fit into continuity with Kamala, with Squirrel Girl, with some of the new characters that we're introducing.
And then next question.
Yeah, in terms of Teresa, I'm a huge fan of what Chip's been doing with the character, and I love working with him generally. They don't know yet, but yeah, I've got some plans.
All right, I'm trying to see. Go ahead, Mitch.
Hey, what's the chance Dan Slott writing an Indiana Jones comic book?
Yeah, what is going on? That's a really good question. Honestly, ever since they got the license.
I would fight Dan Slott for that.
And I believe that, too.
I think if and when the Indiana Jones, publishing plan comes together, and there's no plans for it now, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, that we would have to just like move all the tables in the conference room and just like throw everybody in and let them roll.
A lot of people want that.
Is it a legal thing? And then really, CB, I don't want to get into dirty business, but really, is there just for whatever reason?
No, we just really we're on a course with a lot of our publishing plans, and they have a plan for Indiana Jones, and we're just haven't been really talking about it just yet.
Because I haven't heard Marvel people or Lucas people talk about that possibility.
I can tell you, because truth be told, there's a website called theraider.net. That's me. Called the IndieCast, which is a podcast for 12 years. 12 years talking about 4 movies. We've run out of stuff to talk about. I'll notice on the feed.
You got a TV show too.
Young
And
absolutely.
Video games, throwing up land.
That's true.
Want me to play all 320 episodes?
No, I'm sure you don't. But
No, because I see this little name pop up sometimes. Dan Slott. And I'm like, so he's like, Indiana Jones, and he likes stuff. And one day he was here 2 years ago, and I said, you know that's me. You're the guy? I'm like, yeah. So he had this thing like, so this is a secret plot. And he's here, I feed him saying, yes, Indiana Jones is coming back. He gets his hopes up, and nothing ever happens. So I'm like, wait, make the call. So you're saying there's no...
We'd be honored to publish Indiana Jones comics when and if Lucasfilm decides to expand that franchise. But right now, there's no plans and no talks.
I'll tell Dan.
Before they recast him, I want Sean Patrick Flannery to get one Indiana Jones movie because he is Indiana Jones, and that totally legitimizes the TV show, I think, in another level. So there's my nerd moment. Sir.
Gentlemen, as a huge Marvel fan, I'm very grateful for everything you've done. I am a huge fan of Mr. Spencer, the Captain America story. I jumped out really screaming yes when the other Captain America came back to face the Hydra. And I made a disturbance. That was the last moment. Mr. Soule, I love your run on Daredevil. I'm just getting into the Amazing X-Men stuff. My question to you is, of your fellow peers, past and present, what do you think is the most positive contribution they have given story-wise to the mythos of the Marvel Universe? And also, gentlemen, I'd love to see you two team up for Power Pack.
Wow, that's a question that takes some deep thought.
Good essay question there, man.
Because there's so many, right?
Yeah.
Like you can take small character things that were just so formative. Jason Aaron's Thor really just immediately popped to mind as something that I think has been spectacular. But all of Bendis is there's so many. It's hard to really.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. You mean of people that we've worked with and like
yes, or fans of.
So that's Stan Lee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really.
I was gonna say if it's anybody, then you got to start with Stan. Obviously, you got to start with Stan and Jack and Steve. You kind of got everything that we do emanates from what those guys did, really. So you have to start there in terms of people that I've gotten to work with myself. I'm a huge Jonathan Hickman fan. I'm a huge fan of Jason Aaron's work. I'm a huge fan of Brian. So getting to be in a room with those guys and getting to talk story with those guys has been a huge honor for me.
I've noticed Hickman in a few Marvel Retreat photos that have popped up on social media. Something must be brewing with John Hickman.
Jonathan's always welcome to go where Jonathan wants to go. So.
Exactly. Just in the neighborhood, huh? All right. Something's coming. We know something's coming. Miss, please.
What about the women of Marvel? When are we going to have some books with just the women of Marvel? And when are we going to get more of
Yeah, A-Force was a tremendous book that came out of Secret Wars, and I don't understand why it wasn't continued.
Yeah, and American Chavez was
Sure.
awesome, and a woman of color, and amazing. When we're going to get some queer women, that would be awesome.
There is a lot coming. You will be very happy soon. I don't just say that lightly. I think, the women of Marvel have been a bigger focus just in a lot of the mainstream books, as you know. Over half the editors at Marvel now are women, and they want to bring a lot of their experiences and their love of reading comics to the characters and the ones that they love, and also in creating new characters. West Coast Avengers comes out next week. I think that's a great place to start. Written by Kelly Thompson, edited by Alana Smith. Has the team is led by Kate Bishop. What Devin Grayson has been doing on the Marvel Rising comic has been wonderful. And as part of the 80th anniversary, again, I don't want to get too much in it, but there will be an enormous focus on the women of Marvel with a title called The Women of Marvel, which will be spotlighting a lot of different characters from Marvel's past, say from Millie the Model all the way up to some of the newer characters. So
that's excellent. Yeah. Sir?
I was also a big fan of Darkhawk when he came out in the 90s. I know you brought him back recently, the 51 issue, and then the Infinity, the 4 issue, which I got too. And you even did a little homage in issue 51, I think, to the original creators, Mike Manley and Danny Fingeron.
Yep.
A little mention in the two of them. Is there anything more coming to Darkhawk? Is there any chance that original creators could come back to Darkhawk, like Manley and Fingeron could return to him?
You will be seeing a lot more of Darkhawk in the months to come, but there's no plans currently to talk to. We haven't been talking to Danny or Mike. We don't even know if they have any interest in coming back. But again, just like I was saying, a lot of the theme of this panel is looking back to the past, nothing but respect for their work and building upon it. I'm a huge Darkhawk fan. I had him in a book I wrote called The Loners back in the day, and and that he's spun off onto some fun stuff in the cosmic side, and we're just always going to keep looking back at characters like that. Sleepwalker is going to be coming back very soon too. So first character Joe Quesada ever drew for Marvel was
hilarious.
Sleepwalker. Yeah.
Jesus, that's insane.
But he wouldn't do a variant cover for me.
Oh my God, sir.
Thinking of bringing back characters, any chance of the original New Warriors lineup?
The original New Warriors lineup.
There is no other lineup.
That's a good answer.
A lot of those characters are in different places now. You look back and they had a tremendous impact, Speedball, of course, on Civil War, but they're all in different places now. So currently, there's no plans to really get that team back together. Which Night Thrasher is out there now? Is it the brother? The brother.
It's the brother. Okay.
So
hilarious.
But again, those characters, we love them. But just like with the FF, they're all in different places now. If they come back in the future, who knows? But it's just the right creator bringing in the right pitch.
Did I hear right? What If is coming back?
Was that
What If?
We have some plans for What If. Oh yeah, that has been announced. So yeah, there's six. I always forget.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Saying what I can't say. Yes. What If is coming back. There's going to be 6 new books that are going to be launching. I think it's in September.
Okay.
And it's it's going to be everything from fun stuff like what if Peter Parker became the Punisher, to it's the X-Men, but it's going to be .exe men, and it's a kind of a virtual story. So we got I'm a huge What If fan. A lot of us grew up with What If.
Damn straight.
And,
absolutely.
So the challenge that I posed to some of the younger editors was, what would you do with What If with this generation? A lot of the creators who have done it before, when I was editing it when Bendis and Brubaker and Fraction, these guys did it, we were looking back on those fond stories that we love so fondly. But now this What If team are looking back with fresh eyes, and there are some classic creators coming back as well, like Jerry Conway to tell some stories. So,
excellent. And I just had, forgive the name dropping and the podcast plug, but I just had Roy Thomas on a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the original What If, and I almost wondered if the original format being larger than a standard issue size allowed it, the story to breathe. Because that was the one thing that I noticed with the newer versions of What If, was it's like, man, it's tough to tell a What If story in 22 pages.
It really is, and that's part of the challenge, though, which is one of the things that we task these guys with: tell a cool story with a beginning, middle, and end in just those 20 pages.
Yeah, man. And 20 pages now, too. Yeah.
Woof. Exactly.
Woof. All right, back to you guys. More questions? Sir?
So, going back maybe 5 minutes to Star Wars, post all the mergers of all my favorite companies at once, which I was just Spielberg when I heard everyone was getting together. There was, and part of it was Dark Force, part of it was a bunch of behind it, there was this massive lore bank of Star Wars stories, everything from Darksaber to even prequel books were published. I grew up reading these. They had like K through 12 books, all the way to these massive Harry Potter side books. I was wondering, because that's a huge amount of source material, I was wondering if over at Marvel you have ever considered referencing or taking maybe some of what they had and adapting it to the newer lore. That's the point.
Sure, go ahead.
So I've been able to write a lot of different Star Wars books for Marvel, which has been a huge, just one of the greatest thrills of my career, right? So I did Lando, I'm doing Poe Dameron, Darth Vader, and I did an Obi-Wan Anakin book. And those books are set from the prequel era all the way through to post-Episode 8. So it's the entire timeline of current Star Wars. And so I've gotten to work a lot with the Lucasfilm Story Group, which is the group of creative executives over at Lucasfilm who are tasked with making sure that all of the storytelling across all of Star Wars right now is consistent. So a video game is not going to tell the same story as a comic. They're going to fit together like jigsaw piece puzzles. And so those people have Star Wars PhDs, and they understand and know everything you talk about. They know the most bizarre, obscure action figure prototype lore, things that were never like crazy things you can't believe they know, and they know it all. And so while when Disney bought Star Wars and the decision was made to wipe everything away from the expanded universe, which is what you're talking about, and restart the canon, but for a select group of stories that George Lucas personally had a hand in. So So like Clone Wars TV show, all of the movies, a couple other things. But they loved a lot of that stuff too. And so whenever there's an opportunity to bring an element back, like the Darksaber was a rebel, so that was brought back. There are characters that have popped back in from this canon. Thrawn is a great example. Everybody wanted Thrawn back. Thrawn's back. He's in the current canon. A smaller example in Poe Dameron, there's the concept of ships in like after the rebellion ended. There was all this like broken up X-wings and TIE fighters and AT-ATs and stuff floating around the galaxy, and smugglers and pirates would take pieces of those ships and sort of wire them together into new ships, and those are called uglies. Because you might have like an AT-AT head on an X-wing body, whatever. And I needed a big smuggler space army, and they were like, well, why don't you bring uglies back? That's a cool idea. So uglies pop up in the Poe Dameron comic. And so what I'm getting at in a long-winded way is that they're completely open to bringing ideas back and concepts back, and even to a small degree storylines back from the expanded universe. So it just has to fit in with what the stories are that are being told, and I know you'll see more. There's more stuff that will pop up, little bits and pieces. So those stories are kind of they're not gone. You just don't know which pieces will connect to the current story. Sure.
Well, okay, sir.
So Marvel has a lot of great talent right now, and I was wondering, from the perspective of editor-in-chief, and how do you find new talent, and from the perspective of Charles and Nick, how have you got recognized?
And that's a good guy to ask, because obviously before his capacity as editor-in-chief, CB was literally globetrotting, searching for new art talent.
Yeah, I was the talent manager and the talent scout for Marvel for almost a decade, and it's hard to say. Let me just we break it down between writers and artists, and it's a lot more difficult, and these guys can speak to it a little bit better, for a writer to get in, because it's a little bit harder to get noticed. Because for a writer to get in, we always say, it's kind of like the "don't call us, we'll call you." You have to have work published elsewhere before Marvel will take a look at it, and that's not just comics, but it could be screenplays or novels, or even articles that you've had posted on blogs or things like that, to show that you have the right storytelling sense. You can put words together and entertain people. But the reason it's a little more difficult for writers is because I can look at an artist's portfolio and know within the first 3 or 4 pages if that person is good enough to be working for us and offer criticism. With a writer, you have to sit down and actually read a book or a novel, or a comic, or invest the time, a longer amount of time in finding out if that person has the ability that it takes. So with writers, we always say, get comics published elsewhere first, send them to us, make a name for yourself, and then come we'll find you. But with artists, it's just very easy. Marvel has an open submission policy for artists. We have an active talent management team now that goes out to different shows and looks for people. And anyone that has comic art that they want to submit is able to submit readily anytime to Marvel. I should also say that the other harder part of being a writer is that there are legalities involved. There's paperwork you have to sign because of just intellectual property and the safeguards that we have to put into place to make sure that your ideas remain your ideas and Marvel's characters remain our characters. So that's kind of where the lines are drawn. But if you are a writer, these guys can talk about how they got their kind of start and got noticed by Marvel. That's really the big part of it. But for any comics, is developing a fan base first, and sometimes it's word of mouth online and through other creators. And with artists, it's just you're free to submit anytime. It's just submissions@marvel.com, or our talent manager is Ricky Purdin. It's RPURDIN @marvel.com. You're just free to submit your artwork at any point.
Yeah, guys, would you talk about what you were doing before you went to Marvel? I know, because I was talking to them.
I always say that I think they hired me because I did it the way that they said to do it. I did some books at Image, and thankfully those, caught the attention of some editors at Marvel and DC. And first I did a little bit at DC, but pretty quickly I was talking to the folks at Marvel, and we were off to the races from there. So for a writer, it really is that simple. It's get your books published someplace else, and then try to build a reputation for yourself, and try to get the audience excited about those books, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, I would also say that it is about getting your works out. earlier, work your own stories out. But there's also, it's extremely important to have like a network of fellow creators at your level, because they can give you tips and tricks on things that have worked for them, feedback on your stories, things that people several rungs up the ladder won't have time or inclination to do. So finding people who are also trying to get in. And the internet is phenomenal for that. It's been phenomenal for that for a long time. I mean, Nick and I actually came up sort of, you were a little ahead of me, but Brian Bendis had a message board called the Bendis Board, and it had a lot of currently prominent writers and artists on it. Like Hickman was on it, Nick was on it, I was on it. And so we all talked to each other, and we were able to exchange ideas about how we might break it, how we might get stories made, how do you find an artist, what do you pay an artist, all of those things. And you start kind of, you want to help each other because they're your network. And I don't know if you remember this happened, Nick, but my first image book happened because it was at C2E2 years ago, and I had a pitch, and Nick handed it to Jim Valentino, who runs an imprint of image called Shadowline, and it was Nick's imprimatur, his willingness to say that this is something we're taking time on, Jim, which is why Jim Valentino did do that, and that wouldn't happen if we hadn't been spending years together, just sort of bullshitting on the Bendis boards. And so I think that network is just as important as the work itself, because if you don't have people who are willing to put it in other people's hands, it's not gonna go anywhere.
Another Bendis board guy, Joe Henderson, who was the showrunner of Lucifer and just got greenlit for a 4th season. I, as a member of the Bendis board as well, I remember these guys when they were aspiring writers as well. It's been a pleasure to watch them evolve and get to the point in their careers now, and I know the sky's the limit for all 3 of these men, so I agree. We've got time for one last question, and Miss, please.
I'm a teacher, and a lot of my students look up to the superheroes that they see. Do you have any plans for books for younger kids to be able to introduce them to your characters?
Yeah, Marvel is a company where we want to make sure our comics are accessible for readers of all ages. And to your point about the kid looking up to the heroes, we really do strive when we create these heroes and tell these stories to make sure that they're inspirational and aspirational, And we do have a bunch of plans coming up. We do have a line called the Marvel Superhero Adventures, which is directed more towards younger readers. What age do you teach?
Severe special needs.
Okay, my sister is the same down. It was in Fairfield, Connecticut. I think these books, the Marvel Superhero Adventures books, would be a wonderful starting place for them, because these are our stories that are told with a younger readership in mind and drive home core values. Each issue is centered around some kind of theme or plot to be specifically educational to kids, to teach them through the superheroes, to make them learn not knowing that they are learning, which is the key, as I'm sure you know. And we do have more plans coming up to expand that line and start a couple of new initiatives. We're also going to be publishing a line of younger readers' books with our friends at IDW. Like we do the Star Wars books, the mainstream core Star Wars books, and IDW does a line called the Star Wars Adventures for younger readers. And we're going to be doing the same thing with the Marvel books, where they're going to be taking Spider-Man, Black Panther, and the Avengers and telling stories more based for a younger demographic. So you will be seeing a little more of those books and lines come to fruition very soon. And thank you for using heroes to teach your children.
It's fun to try to teach them emotions, looking at the different characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What they look like.
I think, honestly, I'm really happy that the creative direction of Marvel is in the hands of these guys and the other artists and writers that represent today's Marvel. I think it's an interesting transition, and I see nothing but opportunity. And based on what we've heard today, I think you will all agree. So thank you very much, guys, for your contributions, and thank you for your attention today.
And thank you, John, for being such a wonderful moderator. That was great.
Thanks. Okay, class dismissed. I hope you enjoyed today's Marvel Today panel on Word Balloon 101. More episodes in this fashion will be coming in the days ahead. We've got great stuff. And if you're a patron of Word Balloon and support me via patreon.com/wordballoon, you can get some advanced courses that are posted right now. Things like The Psychology of Wolverine, a discussion with Roy Thomas and Dr. Susanna Flores. Tremendous conversation. Also, the Black Panther panel featuring Don McGregor, Christopher Priest, Afua Richardson, and Bob Almond. And a really fun panel, the DC romance comics of the 1960s, a conversation with Paul Kupperberg and Barbara Freelander, who was the editor of the DC romance line from the mid-60s to the late 60s. And honestly, great behind-the-scenes DC conversations, and I really enjoyed this discussion. All three of those are available now, advanced courses for the League of Word Balloon listeners, the subscribers of Word Balloon, via Patreon. If you'd like, you can become one of those people for as little as $1 a month. I will be posting all the other classes that we're doing during Word Balloon 101 in advance for my patrons. But eventually they'll also be on the podcast too. But if you want, as a thank you to the League of Word Balloon listeners, I'm giving them an advanced look, and they can get ahead of the course load by cramming those episodes as well. But thank you very much for your support. If you'd like to join them, you can subscribe to Word Balloon at patreon.com/wordballoon, or go to wordballoon.com, click on the Patreon ad, it'll take you to my Patreon page. Thank you truly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by InStock Trades at InStockTrades.com. We mentioned great Charles Soule product in the previous segment. Let's talk about some Nick Spencer books available at InStock Trades. We can go back to Nick's run on War Machine, Rhodey's Adventures, Iron Man 2.0, Volume 1, Palmer Adley is Dead. It's 42% off, $9.89. You can also get Ultimate Comics Spider-Man Doom Fallout, the premiere hardcover, featuring a lot of writers, including Brian Bendis, John Hickman, and Nick Spencer. It is 42% off, $14.49. There's also Nick's run with Colin Bunn on Fear Itself, Secret Avengers. That collection is $14.49. There's also Ultimate Comics X-Men by Nick Spencer, with Paco Medina doing the art, also $14.49. There's the first volume of Secret Avengers featuring Nick's work with Luke Ross. That's called, it's 42% off, just $10.43. There's also The Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Great stuff from Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber. Volume 2 is called Crime Century. It's 42% off, $9.85. Lots of Nick Spencer stuff available for you at InStockTrades.com. Don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. You will find amazing books at great prices at InStockTrades.com. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon. We got great stuff coming up in the days ahead. More Word Balloon 101 as we continue in back-to-school season. And I hope you'll join us for all the great episodes to come. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions. Copyright 2018.